I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the tragic disappearance of a 7-month-old named Emmanuel Haro, whose parents reported that he was abducted. But now mom and dad are locked up. Here's the story. Rebecca and Jake Haro have several children. The youngest is just 7 months old. His name is Emmanuel, and he is missing. Emmanuel's mom says she knows what happened. She was in the parking lot of a Big 5 sporting goods store and was trying to change Emmanuel's diaper. She was attacked by a man who said "Hola," who then knocked her out cold. When she came to, Emmanuel was nowhere to be found. Investigators questioned Rebecca and confronted her about inconsistencies in her story. Meanwhile, Emmanuel's father, Jake, has been convicted of child cruelty back in 2018 when he abused his 10-week-old daughter. Rebecca and Jake have been arrested and taken into custody, now charged with the murder of this little angel. Such a heartbreaking case. Little Emmanuel, his own parents accused of taking his life, just 7 months old. I want you to take a look at this, which is the arrest of the father. This is Jake Haro being taken into custody. The guy who has a little bit of a history, folks, a little bit of a history with law enforcement. But this was a big development in the case because remember, he and his wife reported little Emmanuel abducted. And just a week later, the father taken into custody along with the mother. Let's bring in Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson, who's joining us live from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office. He's been on the ground the past few days following this story. And to me, that is such a huge development and a game changer in all of this and the disappearance of baby Emmanuel. What can you tell us, Matt?
Well, Jake and Rebecca Haro, there's a lot of twists and turns in this case. They were first arrested on a Friday night at their home in Cabazon, that's in the desert area of Southern California. And then 2 days later, you have the father, Jake, that was out in his jail jumpsuit, and he was assisting, as you will, with investigators. They had cadaver dogs, and they had a lot of search and rescue teams off a major freeway, the 60 freeway in Southern California. Now, he is behind bars right now, being held without any bail. He is charged with malice murder here in the state of California, being housed separately than his wife. She's in a different facility. He is at the Larry D. Smith Correctional Facility in Riverside, California, and that's exactly where it shows that he will have his first appearance eventually, possibly in a few days following his arrest.
You know, looking at this guy, he is with detectives, with the searchers at the scene, but he is the only one there, right? Rebecca's not there. It's just Jake?
You're exactly right. So it was just Jake, one of the two parents, both charged with malice murder. He was the only one seen on the side of the 60 freeway in Southern California just 2 days after his arrest. And he was not helping to participate, according to authorities here that I've been in close contact with. The deputies at the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office, they're leading this investigation. They say that he was in the area, but he was not active in the investigation or the search at that scene.
That is a very unique situation and something that to me doesn't on its face provide 100% clarity here. Matt's going to stick around. Thanks so much. All of that, I mean, it's bizarre, right? 2 days after arrested, he's out there. Is he or is he not actively? He's not actively participating in the search. What does it mean? Brings us to the first question in our investigation, and it's about the father. Did Jake get a deal? Did Jake get a deal? I mean, he's on the side of the road. There's cadaver dogs. There are detectives. There are searchers. What is going on here? Here to help answer that question, Chief Public Defender for Oakland County, Michigan, Paulette Lofton, and former LA County Deputy Public Defender Philip Dubé. Great to have you both here. Paulette, I'm going to begin with the California kid, all right? Philip Dubé.
Yes.
Let me ask you, before we get to the ultimate question here, he's got a lawyer. Vincent Hughes is his name. He's got the same name as me. He's also a DJ like me, and apparently he's also a very good lawyer. That's his defense attorney. This guy now is arrested, and 2 days later he's out there with deputies. How does that happen? Can deputies just, if they want to take him to the side of the road, they want to take him to a place, can they just bring him there?
Absolutely, they can. They go during an interrogation at the station. They use a manipulative sort of crime scene investigation technique where they kind of cozy up to the inmate and try to get his version of events so he can get it off his chest. And he's
got a lawyer, though. He's got a lawyer, Philip, just so you know. He's got a lawyer. He has representation.
Got that, Vinnie, but he has to ask for an attorney. Remember, he has not been formally charged in court yet. He was arrested Friday night, and under California law and Supreme Court precedent, they have 48 hours, not including weekends or holidays, to get him to court to be arraigned formally. So right now, he is only held on arrest charges, not formal court charges. So the only thing that's triggered right now is Miranda. If they read him his rights, told him he has the right to remain silent, he has the right to counsel, and he hasn't invoked, then it's fair game to take him out in the field if he's willing to cooperate. And he fell prey to this sort of manipulative tactic. There is no way on earth that the cops can promise him a deal because he hasn't been formally charged yet in court. There is no prosecutor even on the case. Nothing has been filed to make those types of promises. And I can tell you now, Vinnie, that if a cop or a detective made that type of promise, it could be deemed to be involuntary, any statements that he gives, and it's suppressible under due process. So I hope that they dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's, because let me tell you, if they mess this up procedurally, this man really could walk.
Wow, Paulette, what are your thoughts here? Did Jake get a deal? Philip is telling me no.
I agree with Philip. I think it's way too early. Very often police use a tactic, as Philip just described. You want to put yourself in the best scenario when we turn this case over. You want to tell us where this child is. Usually they bring up some type of emotion. Obviously, the police want this child's body, dead or alive. This case is not solved until that happens. So obviously the tactics that the police used worked. He gave them some bit of information, or at least a location or possible locations where the body was left. Otherwise, I don't think they would have just taken him out on a witch hunt. I think they were following up on something he said, and maybe they were able to verify some credibility. Maybe his phone was pinging in that area at some point in time where he's claiming he dumped this poor child. And now they are going to have him go with them, since it looks like a very remote area, to try to find this child so that they can move forward with this case.
And Philip, I just want to follow up, because he's been very public about representing Jake. Like, I know that Vincent Hughes represents Jake. Are you telling me that even if he's made that public, how about if the lawyer says, hey, that's my client that you have there? Can they still just question him without going through the lawyer?
The U.S. Supreme Court held, I believe it was in the mid-90s, that even if his counsel is at the station waiting to talk to his client, the cops don't even have a legal duty to tell him that his lawyer is there. The only thing they have a duty to do is tell him that he has the right to an attorney. If that he cannot afford one, one will be appointed. If he does not ask for an attorney affirmatively, they have no obligation to tell him that there's one waiting in the wings there of the lobby. No obligation whatsoever. So if he chooses to talk, spill it, give his version of events, he does it as at his own peril.
This is fascinating to me, Paulette, the way this all went down, because it started as an abduction, but then Vincent Hughes came forward representing the father. The father's been through the system. I mean, he has abused a baby in the past, got a sweetheart deal. I think maybe did one night in jail. That baby will never be the same. She's now a special needs child. For the rest of her life, she'll be that way because of him and I guess his prior wife. I'm shocked. I am shocked that this is all happening not through the lawyer, likely you're saying without any sort of a deal, just like be a good guy and we'll help you on the back end kind of thing? Like we see on those cop shows? Are you kidding me?
So very often, detectives, if they're skilled, they are able to get a defendant or someone that's arrested to make decisions that they otherwise would not make. As a defense attorney, I have been in the lobby of police stations retained by family members, and my client decides to make a statement because, as Philip said, if the client wants to make a statement, even if you're the attorney and you're in the lobby, it is their choice.
Wow.
So I have to believe in this situation, he's not new to these type of proceedings. He's been in trouble before. He's been arrested before. I'm sure he's been interviewed before. I think he thought he was going to be smarter, and he fell prey to the detective's tactics. And here he is spilling the beans.
Unbelievable. He's got a lawyer named Vincent. Why would you not like, okay. Great news, Paulette, Philip are staying with us. Coming up next, will Rebecca stick with the Ola man story?
In my opinion, I think he's just giving him the runaround. Because, like, why didn't they find him? He's just trying to be not in prison or jail for as long as he can.
Matriarch of the Adelson family gets arrested.
Donna Adelson is facing charges of murder, the death of her former son-in-law, Dan Markell.
Prosecutors say a bitter child custody battle was the motive for the murder-for-hire plot.
Now that Donna has turned into a defendant, what's next for the Adelson clan?
Now that the ship is really sinking fast, blood doesn't matter that much.
The Matriarch Mastermind Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, only on Court TV.
It's really sad. It's very messed up. I feel really bad for this poor baby. It's really sad. Everyone's mad. Like, you could, if you didn't want him, but you could have just gave him to someone who did, you know, or take him to a family member. His other kids over with the family, his side of the family, so they could have just did that.
When these stories happen with children, especially small children, in this case, a 7-month-old baby, when something has happened or a child is missing, the community jumps in. I've seen it time and time again. Wherever you are around this country, when word is spreading that there's a child missing, people are ready to jump into action and to help. And what you just heard there, right? Like, if there's a family having trouble taking care of a child, there'll be someone in the community ready to jump in if your family's not going to help you out with all of it. So why? Why does this happen? Anyhow, let's talk about Rebecca, the mom of little baby Emmanuel. Here she is. She was also taken into custody. And remember, you know, the whole story is that she was the victim in all this, and that baby was taken from her. And now she's taken into custody because prosecutors not believing her story, investigators not believing her story. So she is now in custody as well. Let's bring back in Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson, live from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office, who's taken the lead in this investigation, which is covering a couple of different counties out there. Matt, let's talk about Rebecca and her role and what has happened with her.
Yeah, you know, she reported this baby missing on August 14th. About a week later, on August 22nd, 2025, that's when she was hauled away in handcuffs from her home, separately from her husband. And she is doubling down on that abduction story. At least that's what she's telling local media out here in Southern California. Here is part of what she said to the Press Enterprise. "I will not give up. I will not give up on my baby," she said on August 24th in a jailhouse interview with Southern California News Group reporter, during which she maintained that Emmanuel was kidnapped. She went on to say Haro shook her head from side to side when asked about widely circulating rumors that days before she reported the kidnapping, she went to the Big Five, told employees that her car had been burglarized, broken into, and asked whether the business had surveillance cameras. Now, in regards to her husband, Jake, she said this: he's a good dad. She went on to say he would never hurt a baby. Well, she is behind bars right now, also facing those malice murder charges, but in a different institution, a different jail than her husband. Let's put it on your screen. She is housed at the Presley Detention Center in Riverside County as well, ahead of her first appearance. Bail amount, no bail. Now take a look at her booking photo. Very different look on her face than what we saw just a few weeks ago when she was pleading to the public. Here's that story. Let's listen.
We come to you guys asking you to help us find our son. He was abducted last night from Big Five. Somebody struck my wife while she was trying to change his diaper. And we just ask if anybody knows anything to please contact Ukaipa Police Department.
Don't hesitate, just call.
His name's Emmanuel. He's 7 months. He's 7 months old.
Days after that, they clammed up. They stopped talking to investigators here at the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office, Vinnie. So she faces the same malice murder charges. She doesn't have a lawyer as far as we know, and she was not at that search site on August 24th.
All right, Matt will stick around. We got a lot more to get to with him, but interesting, right? Matt reporting she's speaking from behind bars and saying, I'm not giving up on my baby. Well, now we know that her husband was out on the side of the road with detectives and a search party who was looking for little Emmanuel, which brings us to the next question in our investigation. Will Rebecca, we have heard something from, I've got another question that I want to ask, which is, will Rebecca stick with that story? Is she going to stick with the Ola man story? Let me begin with you, Paulette. I want to know about this story she told, right? That some guy, she didn't see him, can't describe him, just heard him say Ola and then knocked her out cold. Is she going to stick with that story after her husband is on the side of the road with detectives? Is she going to stick to that story if she goes to trial?
I think she has to stick to that story, and it appears she's sticking with it at least now. She made what she thought a compelling plea to the public, black eye and all, begging the public to help her find her child. So I think she went to great lengths orchestrating this story, and I think she has to stick with it at this point. I don't think it's going to help. What really struck me about the arrest video, can you imagine being a mother who was attacked by someone and your baby was stolen from you and there are no leads, and then they turn and say, you are the one that is being charged with homicide, and you're not crying and screaming as you're being arrested because now you know that you're not going to be able to be out there searching for your child? She is stone-faced, just like the father. That to me is very, very shocking and very telling of what happened to that poor child.
Yeah, I think we're in, well, she can't stick with that story. Like, once she finds out, like, she's going to get word right inside the jail from either a family member or someone that, hey, by the way, your husband Jake was out with detectives and a search party over by the 60, right? Like, if that's where the baby is, if that's where they put the baby in that area, like, is she going to say that Ola man put the baby over there, Philip? Like, what's going on here?
Well, first of all, she's a worldly wise, battle-scarred woman. If you recall, Vinnie, when they started confronting her with inconsistencies, she lawyered up, meaning she asked for a lawyer, and they had to stop all questioning, all interrogation. She refused to speak to them. So this woman knows the drill. She's going to stick to her story. She's going to stand by it. And if the DA decides to file, she might actually be able to turn state's evidence against Jake. They are now in conflict with one another because their interests are adverse. He will have private counsel if he can afford it, or the public defender. They will declare a conflict as to her, and the indigent defense panel will pick her up and they will appoint a private attorney to represent her. She's going to stick to her story.
Well, he's got Vincent Hughes. He's got Vincent Hughes. I don't think
pre-arrest, post-arrest, you got to pony up some cash. They're not going to work for free. This is going to be a long, drawn-out trial. I don't know the man. I'm sure he's a very capable, skilled, talented lawyer, but just like most attorneys, they are motivated by money. They don't work for free.
All right, Paulette, how does this work now? Let's just say that Jake cooperates. What does Rebecca do? Because if Jake is cooperating, if he cooperates, right, Ola man has left the building.
Correct. It really depends on what he says. I mean, we saw the Stephen Stearns case play out. Mom was never charged. So is mom going to continue to say, I had no idea, I was attacked, the baby was stolen? If he's saying that he was involved in it or he killed the child, she could still stick to that story that she was attacked and completely in the dark about what happened. And I think that's what she's going to have to do. She is going to have to distance herself here as much as she can. Now, obviously, we don't know what he's going to say. Is he going to say that she was a willing participant, that she's the one that did the abuse and he just covered it up? It's really going to depend on what he says. And yeah, I agree with Philip. I think she is going to try to stick with the story, the Ola man story, because it removes her from culpability.
I think at some point,
the child.
Ola man's got to go bye-bye. But anyway, Paulette Loft and Philip Dubé, incredible insight. Thank you both so much. Up next, the most important question: where is baby Emmanuel? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the disappearance of 7-month-old baby Emmanuel Haro. His parents said he was taken by a stranger, but now his mom and dad are charged with his murder. Here's the story. The disappearance of 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro in Riverside County, California, has shaken the community to its core. At first, his parents pleaded for help, claiming their infant son had vanished without a trace. But as investigators dug deeper, troubling contradictions surfaced, unraveling a chilling reality. Authorities now say Emmanuel's parents, the very people meant to nurture and protect him, are responsible for his disappearance. Both have been arrested, facing murder charges. It's a heartbreaking case marked by allegations of violence, secrecy, and betrayal. The search for Emmanuel has become a desperate mission, fueled by both hope and grief. A child so young, so vulnerable, ripped from safety under the most unthinkable circumstances. As the investigation continues, the haunting question remains: what happened to baby Emmanuel, and will justice finally bring him home? Such a tiny little guy. You know, when a baby disappears, someone did something. Because babies don't run away, things don't just happen. Someone has to do something to that little angel. Take a look. The search started happening on Sunday, and social media started blowing up, and word spread. They're searching, they're searching, they're searching. A huge development in all this, because before this moment, they were at the house. Obviously, they were at Big 5 Sporting Goods, where the Ola man allegedly took the baby. But this was different. This was different. So let's bring in Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson, live from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office, who's leading this investigation with more details here. What do we know about this search, Matt?
Yeah, we have agencies from all across Southern California searching for missing baby Emmanuel, which has now turned into a recovery effort. According to detectives, what they learned here, San Bernardino County Sheriffs, they are leading the charge on this one, the investigation. They're also working hand in hand with Riverside County in Southern California. But the search for the baby led them to Moreno Valley, and that is a remote area, and it was a robust search over the weekend of August 24th, 2 days after the parents Jake and Rebecca were arrested from their Cabazon home. Take a look at this video that we have obtained. You can see that this is in a remote area about 23 miles from the parents' home, again in Moreno Valley. Jake Haro, murder suspect now, out there with the investigators and the cadaver dogs. I wanted to visit the scene and show you how it looked from our vantage point. Take a listen. So we're here in one of the initial search areas. This is off of Gilman Springs Road. That's off the 60 freeway, which links Los Angeles to the desert. We're about 21 miles away from the Cabazon area where Jake and Rebecca Haro, they were arrested on murder charges. Over the weekend, this is where Jake was seen with investigators along with cadaver dogs. They were walking through the brush in this very remote area. There's also farmland here, but they were searching for what has now become a recovery effort for baby Emmanuel, presumed dead. Authorities telling us that they did not recover any remains, but they are desperately searching for this baby. And remember, leading up to that, when the parents were arrested, there had been several interviews conducted with not only the parents, but other people. And then there was also their cell phones that were taken into custody. One of their vehicles was also obtained by police, taken into evidence, and they searched their home. So whatever evidence that they have at this point in time is what led to the murder charges, what led them to believe that the baby is no longer with us, deceased. But in this initial search on August 24th, on that Sunday, they didn't find any remains.
Okay. Do we know if they searched the following morning? Because I know it was like a half a day search, right? They're there, they get there in the afternoon, they do the search, they wrap things up. Did they go back?
We were there that following day, and we didn't see anyone searching. And then I followed up with the lead investigator here at the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office. They got back to me. They said that they did not search the following day.
Fascinating. Why you wouldn't go back? That's interesting. All right, Matt Johnson, thanks so much. Brings us to the next question in our investigation. This is the question, right? It's been the question from the beginning. Where is baby Emmanuel? Here to help answer that question, private investigator with more than 20 years experience, Jason Jensen, and retired police commander, host of the podcast Profiling Evil, Mike King. Great to have you both here. Jason Jensen, let me begin with you. That search, are you shocked that there's no follow-up? It's a half a day, and it was wrapped up.
Well, I think what they need is a larger team, more coordination, and it's going to be extensive because this is, for all sense and purpose, is a wilderness area. The range between Yucaipa and San Bernardino is mountainous, so it's highly likely that there are coyotes and other carnivorous predators in the area, including turkey vultures. So it's entirely possible that finding remains is going to be even tougher than they imagined.
Mike King, the father, Jake, was with them. Now, we don't know, the report is that he wasn't part of the search itself, but he's there with them. They don't get there accidentally, do they? They're not picking a random spot. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I'm going a couple of directions, and I like what Jason mentioned about the possibility of animal depredation. There also are mountain lions throughout that region and regular spottings. As you know, Vinnie, my office was about 10 miles from there in Redlands, so I know that area pretty darn well. I've wandered around in that area. Here's a couple of things that came to me right off the bat. Number one, there's a couple of reasons why you take a suspect in this case now a defendant, out to a site. They may have had some telematics off of the vehicle that put that vehicle there for a significant amount of time, or they may have already collected some information off of the mobile devices, the phones and the iPads.
Well, let me hold you there 1 second. 1 second, Mike. Are you saying that maybe the information didn't come from Jake? They're not there because of something Jake said?
Well, so just like you always pay me to do, which I think you need to start paying me to do, we need to think about this in a couple of different buckets, Vinny, because right off the bat, it's possible that they may have collected and developed leads on their own. And sometimes you take a suspect to the area so you can watch the suspect. It's more about the show to see what the suspect's doing and how they're reacting. But we have to now take the completely 180-degree turn that maybe this guy has turned up some information and said, listen, you give me a deal, because we know he's got a lawyer in the business, and why would a lawyer let him go out there? And maybe they've worked out some kind of a deal and they're starting to share some information. And the thing that makes me think that's more likely, Vinny, is the fact that there weren't two investigators out there with a suspect wandering around and trying to watch his behavior. There were 40 or 50 people out there combing that area and working with search dogs. And, you know, I've been out on searches with Jason before with his dog. Depending on the time of day, they may have better success in the early morning hours than at night. So the fact that there wasn't follow-up all makes me wonder what on earth was going on. Is this all part of a whole process to see his behavior, or were they following up on something that he might have given up? And I guess those are the two buckets that we have to kind of theorize about now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jason Jensen, let's get back to now you call them coyotes, I call them coyotes. That's the way we said it, but you're probably correct. If in fact there is some animal that would go after these remains, would the remains, could it happen if the remains were buried in a shallow grave, or would the remains have to be out there? And if the remains are out there and I hate saying this, but it's the case, it's horrible. I don't even want to get the image in my head, but the clothing, if that's all that's left, how far could this baby be taken from the scene, and would the clothing be left behind? Could the baby be dug up? What are your thoughts in all of that?
Well, certainly, if there was a clandestine grave attempted, you're only talking a couple of feet into the ground, especially mountainous regions like that. It's hard to dig too deep. So what will happen is, likely due to decomposition, if there's a shallow grave, an animal will dig that up and take the remains. You know, scavenging happens quite often in the wilderness. We see it when there's, an animal struck by a car. You'll see scavengers feed on the side of the road, and larger ones like mountain lions will actually take the remains off to their dens. So it's entirely possible that even if remains of a body is at, one location, they'll find scattered remains abound, and the majority at a feasting pile where the animal typically will treat, this as a meal.
Yeah, again, folks, it's the reality of this situation. We hate talking about this. We hate creating these images in your minds. But so Mike, if in fact that's where Emmanuel was left, and they did not find him in that first search, what is your level of optimism, 0 to 10, that they could find him, if that's where he was placed and they were unable to locate him with that first search?
Well, I think it is such a close amount of time. There would still be so much evidence in the air. Even if an animal had drug him off, there would be physical evidence. A kill site of an animal by a cougar or a coyote is absolutely gruesome, Vinny. There is drag marks. There are pieces of clothing. I think we would have seen a whole bunch of yellow tape and some tents set up if, in fact, they found anything to suggest that little boy was buried out there. I think also we would see them returning to that area if there was more than just a hope that they were going to find something in the area. But recovering someone in those circumstances, especially something so small as a 7-month-old, is going to be really difficult. And you know, in talking to people like from the Rocky Mountain Cougar Foundation, they talk about the fact that a cougar even is only going to carry the game a short distance, generally downhill, and it's going to bury that thing somewhere. Those dogs would have picked up the scent of a body that's decomposition at this early stage, because even with that heat in Southern California, that body would really be putting off some odors that a dog would have been able to pick up. So I just find it less likely that the body is there, but they clearly are believing that they have a body because the sheriff is saying we're now looking for the remains of this child. That's pointing to evidence that they've recovered somewhere else.
All right, stick with us. Jason Jensen, Mike King, when we come back, still to come. What don't we know about the disappearance of baby Emmanuel?
My heart dropped because I was like, finally he's found, but then it kind of, the feelings went away after finding out that the baby was not found. I kind of feel like he's just giving them the runaround.
When the queen come through, y'all better move back.
Cardi B is back in the courtroom, facing civil allegations for allegedly attacking a security guard.
The Cardi B assault trial. Coverage weekdays at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
A famous entertainer facing an assault trial. A grandmother accused of murdering her former son-in-law. We're breaking down both cases before each day's proceedings.
Opening statements with Julie Grant. Mornings at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
I'm here like every other day and happy to see how our community has came together and is able to show how much love that we have not only in this community but for Emmanuel. My questions are, I just want to know where the baby is at so he can have a proper burial. Like, he's just out there somewhere, and like, this is it. I can't contribute a lot, but there's people from all around the United States that are messaging me to have me go pick up stuff from Target to make signs for the baby. And not only is it in the community here, but throughout the United States, people are messaging me to come here and bring stuff for them. And it just, like, at least he didn't get the love that from his parents, but at least he has the love from everyone, not only in this community, but from around the United States. My heart dropped because I was like, finally he's found, but then it kind of, the feelings went away after finding out that the baby was not found. I kind of feel like he's just giving them the runaround.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking, and it's touched a chord with folks in the community out there, across America, and on social media. But what happens with that is there's a lot of things talked about, rumors, speculation, and you know, there's just, it's tough to separate what's actually happening here. So let's go back out to Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson, who is live from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office, the lead agency in all of this. So Matt, there are a lot of rumors, but what do we know? What are the facts here that we know about connected to the disappearance of baby Emmanuel?
Right, because the search for baby Emmanuel is still happening in Southern California. We don't know what happened to the baby, what led to the baby dying, according to officials here. But here is what we do know. We've compiled the timeline for you. This all starts to unravel and unfold on August 14th in the evening when Rebecca Haro reported that her baby was abducted, stolen, missing. Both parents are then interviewed, and investigators reported inconsistencies in Rebecca's story. They clam up, they stop talking to investigators, and then the husband, Jake, gets an attorney. All right, August 18th, investigators report expanded search efforts. They searched the house in Cabazon. They obtain large amounts of surveillance video, we are told. 2 days later, on August 20th, investigators follow up on reported sightings in Southern California. but still no baby. August 22, parents are arrested from their home in Cabazon, hauled out in handcuffs. That same day, investigators announced that they believe that the baby is deceased. And then 2 days later, on August 24th, on a Sunday, Jake Haro is hauled out in those jail jumpsuits, and he's along the path there of the 60 freeway in Moreno Valley, and he's with those cadaver dogs and those search teams. Vinny?
All right, Matt Johnson giving us incredible information on the ground where all this is happening. Court TV crime and justice correspondent. Thanks so much, Matt. Appreciate it. Okay, so Matt sort of laying out what we do know brings us to the next question in our investigation. The flip side, what don't we know about the disappearance of baby Emmanuel? Still with us, helping us out, private investigator, more than 20 years experience, Jason Jensen, and retired police commander, host of the podcast, Profiling Evil, Mike King. Okay. All right, Mike, what don't we know and how do we get the answers?
A couple of big things that we don't know is we don't know the last time that Emmanuel was seen alive and who saw him alive. Another thing that we don't know is if there's any history of abuse with this little boy and if there are any reports from Child and Family Services or from neighbors or family members that might give us an indication, because there are some things that would suggest that maybe some precipitory behaviors on Dad's part might have contributed in this particular missing child case. So we don't know whether that baby was really even in that parking lot at Big Five, because we do know that law enforcement has CCTV cameras that they were looking at in the area. And that's part of what I think led them to question the timeline and the circumstances that were being laid out to them. We also don't know where those vehicles were traveling in and about. I'd like to know where Mom and Dad work, if they work. I'd like to know their familiarity with certain areas, where they go to go camping or hiking and some other things. So Vinny, the list of the we don't knows is so big and just making me scratch my head. I just hope that we get it a little sooner than in the middle of a trial.
Yeah, Jason Jensen, your thoughts about what we don't know, how we get answers, and what is the key to unlocking this mystery at this point?
I think the biggest question that comes to my mind about what we don't know is how long did it take for them to come up with this kidnapping scenario? Because some of the family has reported the last time they saw Emmanuel was nearly a month ago. So if they actually ditched his body over a month ago, it's even a more daunting search than what we all are thinking. If the child disappeared on the 14th, like Mike reported earlier, the chances of finding remains and the odor that comes with a fresh decomposition is high. But if we're talking a month down the road, many things can happen, making recovery even slimmer.
Yeah, this is a tough one. This is a difficult one, but obviously we'll stay on the story. And a big thank you to Jason Jensen and Mike King. Great insight. Your perspective, point of view, so important to helping us understand all this. You know, it seems like things are moving pretty fast in this case to a certain extent, right? Jake and Rebecca arrested within a week. A very public search with the apparent help, maybe not, of Jake. But that baby is still missing. And there are still so many unanswered questions in this case. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for the answers as the investigation continues.